All right, so we're still looking at surds, rationalizing the denominator. With another example here, the square root of 23 minus the square root of 33 divided by the square root of 23 plus the square root of 33. So as always, we are going to multiply our numerator and our denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. So the conjugate of our denominator here is square root of 23 minus the square root of 33. What we do to the numerator, we also do to the denominator. Right, so we can expand our expressions here. Let's start with our numerator. Right, so let's do it like this. Square root of 23 times the square root of 23, that gives us 23. The square root of 23 times the square root of negative 33, we get negative, right? And so 23 times 33, get 759, the square root of 759. Okay, then again we say, we for our expression again, this time we say now, the square root of 33 times the square root of negative the square root of 33 times the square root of 23, that gives us again square root of 759, right? And then negative 33 times square root of negative 33 times the square root of negative 33 gives us positive 33. Right, then divided by, right? So also below we follow our denominators. Square root of 23 times the square root of 23, that gives us 23. The square root of 23 times negative the square root of 33, that gives us negative 759. Right, the square root of 33 times square root of 23, that gives us positive the square root of 759. The square root of 33 times the negative the square root of 33 gives us negative 33. So we can now simplify our expression. So here it's like negative the square root of 79 minus negative the square root of 79. That's going to give us minus 2 the square root of 759. So like we have a coefficient of 1 here and a coefficient of 1. So negative 1 square root of 759 minus negative 1 the square root of 759 gives us negative 2 the square root of 759 plus 33 divided by the square root of 759 plus the square root of 759 gives us 0. So this is like we have a 1 here and another 1 here. Negative 1 plus 1, that is 0. So remain with 23 minus 33. 23 minus 33, that gives us negative 10. So that is our answer. We go over to our next one here. 1 over 2 plus square root of 3 squared. So what we have to do is we have to first expand our denominator. So we say this will be equal to 1 over the square root 2 plus the square root of 3 times 2 plus the square root of 3. Let us expand our denominator. 2 times 2, that gives us 4. 2 times the square root of 3, that gives us 2 square root of 3. The 1 on top, 1 over, right? We go to our next one. The square root of 3 times 2, that gives us 2. 2, the square root of 3. Then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that gives us 3. All right, so now our expression becomes 1 over 4 plus the square root of 2, the square root of 3 plus 2, the square root of 3 gives us 4, the square root of 3. All right, then 4 plus 3, that gives us 7. So, well, we now have 1, so we have 1 over 7 plus 4, the square root of 3. Now here is where we can multiply by our conjugate. It's going to be 7 minus 4, the square root of 3 over 7 minus 4, the square root of 3. 1 times 7, that is 7. 1 times negative 4, the square root of 3 gives us negative 4, the square root of 3. Below, we expand again our brackets. 7 times 7, that gives us 49. 7 times negative 4, the square root of 3 gives us 28, the square root of 3. Okay. We say 4, square root of 3 times 7, that gives us 28, the square root of 3. 4, the square root of 3 times negative 4, the square root of 3 gives us. So what's going to happen here is this. All right, we have 4 square root of 3 times 4, the square root of 3. So 4 times 4, that is 16. Now remember, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that is 3. So 16 times 3, that is 48. Right, so we're going to get minus 48. All right. So be careful when you're multiplying these surds. All right. Remember, square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that gives us this 3. All right. Then 4 times 4, that's 16. That's how we got our 48. Then we can simplify our expression here. The square root of, negative 28, the square root of 3 plus 28, the square root of 3 gives us 0. So this will be cancelled out. 49 minus 48, that is 1. So our answer basically is 7 minus 4, the square root of 3.